So I got something that's like a non-stop problem for me here. My tire started wobbling, as you can see. So I went to go investigate, and I found out two spokes broke again. Well, I'm like, damn, I mean, I hit nothing. Nothing got in the spokes. They snapped right at the base. And the other thing that keeps happening with the four-stroke is since I did the torque converter, it's breaking my bolts. It actually snaps them back at this point. Let me see if I can. So it's snapping them off about where the gear is, shearing them. So whatever reason, it's like the torque of this is breaking spokes from the four-stroke. Has anyone else had a problem like this, and how do you solve it? I'm gonna try chrome vanadium studs this time and see if that helps. But other than that, I don't know. Can't figure it out. These were 10.9 metric bolts, so they're like, grade 8 bolts basically in English. Or a piece. Alright guys, so here's a little update on stuff and what's been going on with this. This bike's really fun to drive, the four-stroke, but I've had nothing but broken bolts in the back. And from what I understand, if this was a centrifugal clutch setup, this probably wouldn't happen. But because we're using the torque converter, a little bit of a different animal. So, well, what happens is, like on the Motorized bus, like the two-stroke kits, you pull your clutch in and everything's disengaged. So everything just runs free. And that's fine, like no bolts break and whatnot. And in theory, with a, one of the little drum clutches, yeah, it could be the same. Well, not as abrupt as what's going on here. But with the torque converter, it's a little bit different. The motor gets up to a high RPM. Things slide. The weights inside, they're flipped out. It's kind of driving a band, and the band is slowly changing gear ratios and all that fun stuff. And the other thing about this is the motor. This thing's humming at 6,000 RPM. It's going directly to this. And it starts out at a low RPM. Yeah, I mean a smaller to bigger. And when you're up higher, it actually is big to small. So if that's doing like $6,000, I think it's 1 to 3 or something. This thing is doing 7,400 RPM, something like that, right out of this. So that's a big difference. It's 11 to 44. So what happens is you're bucking along, and this thing's all up in its higher range and stuff, and the wheel wants to slow down. So it's acting like a lever, actually, because now it's flinging this, because this is the driving force, and it's trying to drive all this until everything matches again. So I think what's happening is, this is acting like a big lever, and this is kind of a little resistance, and it's shearing the bolts off. And when you stomp on the brakes as well, that's even more force, and this thing is still pulling that wheel forward to some degree, even though all this is slowing down. So there's a constant fight there. And what I think I'm gonna do is, one, I'm gonna get rid of the disc brake. I could put a rim brake on here and everything would be fine with that. I have no problem with this thing cruising in the rim brake. So, and I'm gonna keep the disc brake up front. I may actually put the 203 millimeter one up there. So we'll see. We're not there yet, so not worry about. But I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna change the setup on this. And we are going to put a pulley on this. Now everyone said use the V-belt pulley and put it on in there, and it will take out some of the slap that the chain causes and stuff, and the constant fighting, and it can slip a little and whatnot. So we're going to go with it. We're going to try it. I got a couple ideas how to mount one. I see a lot of people just put a 20-inch rim or 12-inch rim on the side of the thing. They weld it right to the spokes. I really don't want to go down that path, but I really want to keep the torque converter instead of a clutch. Everyone said if I did this, I'm going to need to change it to a belt drive somehow. And I got a couple of brainstormed ideas. So 5/8 shaft in there. I'm going to put like a 1.5-inch pulley or 2-inch, something like that. And I'm going to put a 9-inch in the back, which is the equivalent to a 56 tooth. Now with the 56 tooth sprocket, I break even more bolts because it's more leverage. But the motor, as of right now with this one, can only hit about 4,200 RPM. And then there's just too much fighting between everything to go any faster. When I have the 56 tooth on, this motor gets up to like $6,000 easy. Fully engages this, puts all the power out, and I actually hit like 42 miles an hour. Easy on this. Right now I can't go above 33. So I know it's funny because it's completely ass backwards of the two-stroke how all this works, but the 56 tooth has less resistance to get the motor up to speed to drive this fully and put the power out to the back faster. And with a belt, it's going to be less of a catastrophic event if the chain jumps. Because now with the bigger pulley, it's actually even more devastating because everything's moving faster. So my goal is belt drive. I got a couple ideas. We're going to see if it works and go from there. But I do believe I'm going to do a rim brake and eliminate the disc, and we'll see how this all works. Alright, so this is a 56 tooth sprocket, and this is the ideal size for the setup I have. But what I did is I took a 36 tooth sprocket, I put it on the lathe and I cut the teeth off it. So I got a perfect blank to go on my hub for the motorized bicycle. So what I'm gonna do is I 3D printed a spacer, and this is gonna go, let's do this over here. This is gonna go in the hub, like so. So now that I have a good center point, I'm gonna print a second disc that fits on this in center to fit inside my pulley's hole. Since it's 2 1/4, it's coming in a day, and it's a 4-bolt. So when I line those up, I'll move the 4 bolts to a blank spot, and I'm going to drill holes in this, and I'm going to bolt it on, and that way I should have a motorized bike pulley that's centered. So I 3D printed these spacers just like this so I could put the disc on it, and that way when I mark them out I can rotate this, but you'll see when I do it. So this is going to be my fix. I'm going to change everything over to a 3/8 belt drive. And people said the give and slip and stuff of a belt to some extent will save the bolts and not mangle everything up. So we're going to give it a try, This was a CDH Power 36-tooth sprocket, and we're going to use this as our base plate for the pulley to sit on. When that comes in a day, we will get it going and see how it goes. Alright, so just to give you an idea how this is going to play out, got a spacer in here, got a spacer in there. One hole actually lines up, so we may actually use that one and cut the new ones from there. I'm not sure yet. But anyways, no matter how I put this, it's going to keep this disc centered while I drill my hole pattern of however I decide to do that. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to do. So, anyways, this is where we're at. That's how I got the setup to keep this centered while I drill it. What I will do is mark out my holes, then I'll rotate this and make sure the next holes all line up so that way you know it's true before I start drilling. And I'll probably leave this together, bolted in place, and then I'll pop this insert out and we'll stick it on the lathe or something and see how true it is. This is how I am going to get it to stay on my motorized bicycle. So I think this is going to be pretty good. We will find out. Alright, so I got this. It was all in, left it in place. Lined it all up for bolts, some stuff from my toolbox. We'll pop that out. And there is going to be the sprocket that will go on my 4-stroke build. So it's all lined up. Everything should be pretty damn true. And that's how I did it. We'll give this a paint job and some better bolts. Gotta clean some of this stuff off. This was a new old stock thing. It's never been used. Just sat in a warehouse somewhere. But came out awesome. Alright, peace. Alright, so I shot it with some primer just to see how it adheres to the surface. They treated it with like I think it's like one of those tar oil based like a lacquer kind of stuff. They throw it on so it doesn't rust while it's in storage kind of thing. But it's bare metal for the most part. So anyways, I just took it off with a well, as you can see, I left it where the pulley is. You can see that finish. And then this, I just scrubbed it off. It was, I used Dawn dish soap and Scotch-Brite. But anyways, I shot this side with some primer, self-etching primer. We'll see how that adheres and whatnot after it's fully cured. But just to give you an idea, so you can see, we're pretty much identical in size. This works awesome on the 4-stroke with the, oh my god, I want to say 11 tooth. It's either 10 or 11 tooth, the pinion, and then the main sprocket is the 56 is great. I keep breaking bolts though, and I think it's actually from the tire turning this faster than the torque converter can settle down when you slow down, so it's breaking the bolts right in here. But with the belt, it's supposed to be able to slip a little bit, and have a little more give and stuff so it doesn't break stuff. And I'm also going to do away with the disc brake on the 4-stroke in the back. The front disc brake alone stops that bike pretty well. But I'm going to just put a, what the heck do you call those? I guess a rim brake, I guess is what you call them. Just like on the 2-stroke in the back. So, anyways, now I got one just like I got a 44 tooth, I think, on the 4-stroke. But I can't get the motor up to the correct RPM and stuff like that. It really needs this one. So, believe it or not, on the 4-stroke, because there's so much resistance with the smaller sprocket, you can't get that engine up into higher RPMs to drive the torque converter fully. And then when the torque converter is driven fully, it's like I think it's 1.3, 1.4 ratio. So every time that motor spins, it spins 1.4 in the back. And with the 10, I think it's 11 tooth on the other one. In this, I could hit 44 miles an hour, which was awesome. And I understand why people put the rim now around the back and just direct drive it off it. So, a 4-stroke's a whole different monster. So, but anyways, here's the solution. We're going to see how this does. If this adheres pretty well, I'm going to coat the whole thing, and then we'll paint it to match the bike. But there we go. There's my V-belt pulley and how I made it.